So after ranking all the Doctors a few weeks back, I thought it would only make sense to rank his dark equivalent, the Master. Before we get started though, I need to give a couple of honourable mentions because as these lists normally work, there will be a couple of Masters that I won't be including, mainly the non-TV ones. So basically, any Master from Big Finish, mainly because I haven't delved deeply enough into Big Finish to give a concrete opinion on those Masters. In addition, I won't be ranking the Geoffrey Beevers and Peter Pratt versions of the Master because they're so wholly different from what we would consider to be the Master that I think that they would be kind of redundant on this list because they're just so far removed from any other incarnation on this list. I also won't be including any non-canon Doctors, so sorry Angry Pacifist, who played my Master in Doctor Who Regenerated, you won't be on this list, nor will things like The Curse of Fatal Death Master be on this list either, although I will say I really did like that Master. But with that said, let's get on with the list. Coming in at 7th place, we do have Michelle Gomez's Missy. The reasoning for this is not because the performance is bad or anything. I actually think Michelle Gomez gives a fantastic performance as Missy. It's more the fact that to me, Missy is a completely different beast to the Master. She shows compassion and tries to side with the Doctor in the end. Don't get me wrong, I understood the intentions of Missy, trying to show a lighter side of the Master, but she just doesn't feel like the Master to me in a lot of cases. She feels more like a twisted Mary Poppins, and that's great, but it's just not the Master for me. So with that said, moving on to number 6. At number 6, we do have Derek Jacobi. Now, as I said earlier, I'm not going to be including audio stuff, so I'm only ranking Derek Jacobi based on what we saw of him in Utopia. And what we saw of him in Utopia was genuinely really good. He was really threatening when he killed Chantho, and yeah, he just had a lot of presence, and obviously the turn from Yana to the Master was fantastic as well. He's just not shown that much in the main series, which is a shame. Coming in at 5th place, this one hurts to do, admittedly, as a fan of the TV movie, but I've got Eric Roberts here. Now again, as I said, I'm not including Big Finish stuff, and if I did, then maybe this would go up, but as he is in the TV movie, my main issue with Eric Roberts' Master is just that he's kind of inconsistent. There are points where he's really sort of over the top. For example, in the scene where he's in the Gallifreyan robes, he's really over the top and really sort of mastery. But then there's some scenes where he's more like the Terminator, there's some scenes where he's more like a lizard type thing, and it just, the things don't gel together very well, I suppose. There are elements that I think are there to make a really great Master, but they don't just all quite come together right for me. And yeah, that's just my opinion. If your opinion differs, that's totally fine. I'd like to see your rankings of the Master down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think about these Masters, how you rank them, etc. Coming in 4th place then, we do have Anthony Ainley's Master from, well, the 80s pretty much, from Legopolis all the way up to Survival and the show's cancellation. The main thing I think of when I think of Anthony Ainley's Master is just fun. He's just an awful lot of fun to watch. He's a great presence. The only criticism I have of Anthony Ainley's Master is that he was clearly encouraged to try and replicate Delgado's Master, and I do think that somewhat limited the potential of this Master. He is very mustache twirling. He kind of reminds me of Dick Dastardly from Wacky Races in that way. He's very over the top, comedic, mustache twirling villain, and that's great, don't get me wrong. It's very fun to watch, and I imagine very fun to play, but it's just there's not as much depth to it as I think I would like with some of the later Masters on this list. Coming in at number 3 then, to my surprise, Sasha Dhawan. Now, admittedly, I'm not the biggest fan of the Jodie Chibnall era, as you guys all know, but Sasha Dhawan is like the shining light in a dark tunnel. He is so much fun on screen, and unlike the Anthony Ainley Master, I would argue, has some depth behind him with the whole discovering the lie of the timeless child and going back to his old ragey ways, presuming that this master comes after Michelle Gomez's Missy, which I'm going to assume that he does, because we haven't been told any different. And I just love the sort of the rage that he brings to it, but also he's kind of a combination of a lot of the elements that I love about the Master. He brings back a lot of the sort of the disguises and the gadgets of the classic Masters. He incorporates a lot of John Simm's insanity in there, which I love, with a lot more rage, and I think he pulls it off excellently. I think that I would have liked to have seen him alongside a different Doctor. I think he'd be great alongside 11, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, this Master is just fantastic. His costume is great. Everything about this Master is just, I love him. Coming in at number 2 then, obviously it won't take a genius to figure out who's left. Coming in at number 2 is Roger Delgado. Now I know this is going to shock some people, because for many people, Roger Delgado is their favourite Master, and I honestly debated whether to put him in number 2 or number 1. But the reason I'm putting him in number 2, I want to see more of him. I haven't seen too much of his stories, and I want to see more. What I have seen, though, is genuinely awesome. He has the sort of mustache-twirling element that the Ainley Master had, but at the same time, he knew when to sort of be somber and take the role seriously. He kind of had that perfect balance. And while the Anthony Ainley Master is kind of an imitation of this Master, this is the original Master. And many people say that he hasn't been topped, but I personally feel that, wow, I think this is probably, it's difficult. I think this is probably the best Master from like a character perspective, but he's not my favourite. So yeah, it's mainly personal preference, this, for sure. But obviously, if you guys disagree with this, yeah, feel free to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. But number 1, and quite controversially, I think, John Simm's Master from, obviously, the David Tennant era, and he appeared also in the Peter Capaldi era with Twice Upon a Time and the Doctor Falls. Now, the thing about John Simm is that a lot of people say, he's too weird and wacky and crazy. But to me, that is the perfect foil to the Tennant Doctor, much like Delgado was the perfect foil to Pertwee, being an action-heavy, sort of suave, gentlemanly type. A sort of enraged, crazed lunatic is kind of perfect to play off the more sort of wacky 10th Doctor, and I think it just works really well. I think his best appearance is still Last of the Time Lord's Sound of the Drums, mainly because he just completely takes over, and it's great to see the Master actually win for what feels like a really long time. He just steals scenes. Admittedly, his worst outing is probably End of Time. Not really because of him, but just because of the way he's written. He's written to kind of be this animalistic sort of person that's clinging on to life, and it doesn't quite work as well. And then you've got the sort of World Enough in Time Doctor Falls variant, which is kind of like the combination of his more craziness with a more classic Master sort of vibe as well, and he's kind of got the look of a more classic Master. Admittedly, you know, he is probably one of the more inconsistent Masters character-wise. He goes from, as I said, the Prime Minister of Great Britain being very sort of crazy and wacky, the sort of super Time Lord that we got in End of Time with the whole feed me and eating food and stuff like that is very strange, and then we get the sort of middle ground in World Enough in Time Doctor Falls. He's kind of very similar to how Peter Capaldi was developed as the 12th Doctor, in that starts off one way, goes another way in his second sort of outing, and then in the third outing, sort of best of both worlds. It's kind of the same with this Master. And yeah, I kind of wish we saw more of him, admittedly. We've already seen 2 Sasha Dhawan stories. I mean, 4 outings, 4 performances, if you like, because we saw him in Spyfall Part 1, Spyfall Part 2, Ascension of the Cybermen, and Timeless Children. Whereas John Simm's Master, we only saw him in Utopia, Sound of the Drums, Last of the Time Lords, End of Time Part 1 and 2, and, well, Never Time Doctor Falls. So Sasha Dhawan's master is already kind of catching up to John Simm's master within one series. So I do think it's a shame that we didn't see quite as much of him as I'd have liked to. Maybe I'm going to have to delve into some of his Big Finish stuff. But yeah, we'll see. So that was my list of masters. Let me know down in the comments below what your favourite masters are. Who knows, you might have a completely different list to me. Be sure to like this video. Let's see if we can get 100 likes. Why not? In the description below will be links to my Twitter and my Discord. Thank you for watching, and I will see you.
Make sure to exterminate that subscribe button.